Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where we need to work on redesigning our outpost for entry into Duna. And realistically, how do we want to do that? That's an interesting question. I'm currently... we're gonna have to do a little bit of aero braking, and parachutes will help, but I don't know that we want to fully rely on parachutes for our Duna re-entry. Now, I've already turned this off camera so that that's lined up, but I want to get this set up the way we talked about last episode. So I want to take these tail fins and go into quad symmetry. The tail fins are going to be moved out to here. Cool. Now I want to look at the center of mass versus center, or rather the aerodynamic overlay. This is moved down quite substantially. So we probably want to bring this up to about the height where it was previously. We know we're pretty stable here, like this. Okay. So obviously now we need to correct our setup here, so that this is no longer offset, right? So this could just simply go approximately there. We would need to snap it down ever so slightly, just so that it's at the same height, like that. But in theory, that would do the trick. Right there. That should fix the offset thrust issue. And that means that this mass is not going to be carried nearly as far. That'll give us slightly more delta V here, although not substantially more delta V, but a little bit. It'll be slightly more efficient. So the real question now becomes re-entry. How are we going to handle re-entry? We can detach this here. We certainly don't need anywhere near as beefy of a re-entry system as we did on Eve. That's guaranteed. We could simply put in a heat shield here that expands like this to slow us down as we go in. And then parachutes up top. We detach the heat shield later on into the descent. The parachutes and the engine here slows us down. Now, what is our thrust to weight here in this situation over Duna? 1.33 at quote-unquote sea level, at 0 kilometers. There aren't seas on Duna, but 1.33 is acceptable. That is certainly acceptable. So this would be deflated, and then we put in a decoupler here. Now, we should not rely too much, in my opinion, on parachutes for bringing this in. So, we're going to have a couple of parachutes to slow us down. So we're going to have drogue chutes on here for sure. Drogues are going to be important. So something like this. And then what if we just simply had quad radial mount parachutes? Like that. The point behind them being here is to keep us pointing away from the heat shield. The question is, do we slow down enough with this as it is right now with just the heat shield to deploy our drogues? I suspect that we do. Now, we definitely need to deal with our staging here. There's no doubt about that. So let's do this, and then we'll run a quick simulation of the re-entry and make sure that that's going to work reasonably well. But between the parachutes and the powered landing, I think we'll be fine. This should, of course, be renamed as the Duna Outpost. Cool. We'll save that, and let's double-check our staging here. So all of these fire at once, yes. And then the SRBs detach. The nuclear engine should not be firing here. So those detach, and what is this decoupler? Okay, that decoupler does not go there. I can tell you that right now. So that decoupler goes more like up here after the, after the nuclear engine is no longer firing. This staging now looks correct. Okay, let's run a quick simulation of the re-entry. This will definitely be reverted. So, we're just going to put this out over Duna. I have full confidence in delivering this to Duna at this point. It's slightly heavier than the Ike Outpost, but not by a significant margin. It's And we have plenty of delta V slush. I'm not concerned about that at all. So getting to Duna will be absolutely fine. No problem whatsoever there. The real question is landing on Duna afterwards. So let's go ahead and simulate that real quick, setting our orbit over Duna. And eventually this will load in. There we go. This is a pretty high orbit, isn't it? Can we lower this? I seem to have raised it. This is minimum safe value, apparently. Okay. Yeah, that's more like it. Fantastic. Minimum safe value is good. Okay. So from here, we're going to detach all of this stuff. So we immediately want to run this stage, because we want to detach all of that. Then we want to detach this, just for purposes of the simulation, right? So all of that's gone and out of here. Now we go to retrograde and hope that we clear this area fairly soon. Now, these will detach much, much earlier than this. That's for sure. Okay, I'm going to fire up this stage and get us some distance here. There we go. And we'll set our periapsis height to perhaps like 20 kilometers. Let's see what that feels like. Okay, so 20 kilometers as of now. Then we detach this. The fuel amounts are non-realistic, obviously. But from here, we're looking to inflate our heat shield. Now, we have no further control until after this heat shield is jettisoned. And in theory, we could use the jettison heat shield instead of this decoupler. That might be a small optimization to make as well. For the time being, let's just go ahead and warp. We can't warp faster than 10x right now. We should inflate this heat shield, of course. There we go. And let's head down into the atmosphere. It's going to take a little while to get there with this warp reduction. We're going to be coming down on the dark side, which isn't necessarily ideal, but I guess it's fine. Cool. So obviously, Duna is not Eve, right? There's a couple of major things to consider when landing on Duna as opposed to landing on Eve. One, the atmosphere is far thinner. And two, the gravitational pull of the planet is actually far lower as well. So that means that this is a far less energetic re-entry, and it should be a much simpler one. This also means that we're not just completely shrouded in darkness over here, which is nice. I do like that. So we are making our way over towards the periapsis as quickly as we can. It looks like this is going to be a fairly lengthy aero break. The real question I have is, with a periapsis of 20 kilometers, are we going to be doing a multiple aero break pass? Which is something that happens pretty regularly when actually landing on Mars in reality, but I don't think that's going to happen here. Judging by how quickly this is dropping, I think it'll be completely and totally fine on that front. So the next question becomes, when do we end up being able to fire our drogue chutes? And how effective is this landing system? The thrust to weight is 1.39, so that should be reasonable. But how slow do we get going with our parachutes? That's the question we're aiming to answer with this. And if this works fine, then we'll just take this off to Duna immediately. I'm hoping that we'll only need this one test. As far as dress goes... Oh, hello, Ike. As far as dress goes, we're going to be landing on that planet in a zero-gravity situation, which shouldn't require testing. I only really test aerobrake systems. I don't really test, like, propulsive landings, because as long as our thrust to weight is high enough, it's just a matter of timing, right? So for now, we have a periapsis height in the negatives. Impact time in about 3 minutes. We can definitely see that we're slowing down here. That's a good sign. And we're about to be able to launch our drogue chutes, actually. Physics Warp doesn't like holding attitude. At all. Okay. That's noted. But we are continuing to slow down here. These are drogues, right? Yeah, these are the drogues. Of course they would be. Remember, the main reason behind the drogues is actually to hold attitude. Because we've got this drifting going on here. That's unsurprising, given what we have going on here aerodynamically. Did these actually arm? Yes, they did. Okay, so they just haven't deployed because of the min pressure, I'm guessing. Let's crank that all the way down to the minimum. And we'll have to do that, unfortunately, for all of these. There we go. And then as far as the radial mount parachutes, we'll see when those can fire. For now, the drogue chutes are armed, but they are not actually heading out because the pressure isn't high enough. But I did cut that target pressure in half. So we can see here we're like a minute from impact. Drogue chutes have still not deployed. Or not even deployed. They haven't even fired up. Okay, let's go ahead and fire the mains. The mains actually... Okay, that was the drogues firing out there. That was interesting timing. So the drogues are now out. That's cool. And the mains, I do want to drop that minimum pressure as well. So that's something we're going to have to do in the VAB. Cool. We're watching this radar altitude here. For now, I'm going to jettison the heat shield and begin burning. The mains haven't deployed yet. We may want to have the mains deploy higher. Yeah, we need to adjust those deployment heights, but this actually looks quasi-decent. It's a little fast on impact. A little fast on impact. I'm not going to lie about that. But as far as an initial test goes, I feel like that was quite successful. So we're going to revert that back to the vehicle assembly, and our primary goal there is going to be a couple of things. One, I feel like this is unnecessary. And we'll be better off burning. Having these parachutes, I think, is useful. But I think we ditch that. 2. These parachutes need to be much higher altitude, and the min pressure needs to be absolute minimum. There we go. So that will help matters a little bit. Do we need another simulation? I think the answer to that is probably no. I do want to get some struts on here. These struts came off at some point. So I would like to get these back applied here. Although they need to be down here, right? So they need to come up like so, and then we'll need another one over here. Just making sure that we're connecting on there. This strut can be removed. It should be on this side. There we go. So something along the lines of this, although this one is not exactly connected up well. There we go. That'll do. So using our nuclear engines for a lot of our deorbit and then killing our speed with this, I think will be absolutely fine. Now, obviously, the chutes were a little late there. But we have modified those. I think we're fine. I really do believe that we're fine now. So we can grab our scientist and engineer. That is going to be Alice and Hayton. And they are going to head on out to Duna. I think we're ready at this point. The inflatable heat shield is, I think, unnecessary mass. That ended up meaning that we weren't burning this fuel, which meant that this fuel ended up being a lot of unnecessary mass, and overall, I don't think that it's going to be really super needed for Duna. Like, we're coming in quite slow, right? So, and we'll have lots of fuel in our nuclear engine that we can burn off as well. Now, one thing I would like to check is over Duna, our nuclear engine is stage 3 here. So over Duna at sea level, we have 0.75 thrust to weight. 0.79 in orbit. That's very similar. Okay, noted. That'll be fine. Let's put this out on the pad, and we're going to launch this for realsies. Let's get out of here. So we can toss in that heat shield for thicker atmosphere locations, like potentially Lathe. That might not be a bad idea. Lathe, we might be able to do a full parachute landing. I don't know. Or powered parachute assisted landing. We'll have to see. Some of those moons are kind of spicy, but let's go ahead and throttle up. SAS on, and off goes Alice and Haton. Beautiful. Okay. Once again, we want to push up through the atmosphere quite a bit, so we're going to about 65. This is much more stable, as we expected. We do still have a little bit of rotation there as we're trying to turn. Well, let's just go ahead and lock this to prograde right now. And let's adjust our heading a bit. Cool. Something along the lines of that-ish. We've got lots of solid fuel left here, of course. We are definitely picking up a slight roll. Which I'm having to, like, constantly correct here. Unexpected, but not the end of the world. Okay, we've got 8 seconds-ish on this burn. Keep in mind, this timer is not correct. It's actually a little longer than that. 2, 1, 0. Cool. Nice clean detach, exactly what we wanted to see. Now we're heading over to get horizontal speed, since our apoapsis is up out of the atmosphere. Okay, this thing is nice and controllable. I like it. Except in the roll direction, but roll isn't all that important. Okay, we'll park here until we hit about 100 kilometers. Looks good to me. We do have about a minute of burn left in these side tanks. Always great. And we can see our time to apoapsis here is going up. So obviously we're going to have to stop our burn and do a separate circularization burn. That does technically mean that we're targeting the wrong apoapsis height for our thrust to weight ratio, but it doesn't matter. It's fine. So 97, 98, 99, and 100. Cutting engines, and let's prepare for our circularization. So something along the lines of... this will do. There we go. Looks like we'll have about 300 delta V left. We're now officially in space, so I'm going to extend 2 of our solar panels, which will have to be retracted on entry into the Duna atmosphere. But that's fine. No real problem there. We also have to figure, as we go further out, solar panels are going to be less effective. So once we get beyond, like, dress, we may have to start thinking about alternative power sources. Or supplemental power sources, perhaps. So, we have about a minute until our circularization burn here. Let's go ahead and warp for that. 50 seconds. 40, 30, 20, 10, and 3, 2, 1, 0. Excellent. Okay, so we're just watching our periapsis height here and looking to roughly circularize. It doesn't have to be perfect. Technically, we want to stop our burn here. We're a little overpowered for this burn, and we were pushing away our apoapsis at that point. So technically, we want to wait again and burn about now. Okay, close enough. It'll do. So, at this point, of course, we want to gravity assist around the moon. That is one of the most efficient ways of getting out of the Kerbal system. Not necessarily the most efficient at all times, but it's a nice rule of thumb. Okay. What do we got here? That looks decent. Okay, we just need a little bit more prograde, or alternatively, to change our timing. Timing looks like a good thing to change here. Okay, so we change this timing. We don't quite have enough prograde here. Is that in... Oh, that's a nice periapsis. Okay, that looks good. 837 dV for an escape. I like it. Let's go. So we will align for that. We're going to have about about a third of it with these engines here, which is about what we had previously. That looks good, and that burn is going to commence in about 7 minutes here, which currently it's a radial burn, kind of awkward looking, but as we go around Kerbal here, it'll be fine. So let's go ahead and warp. Cool. And I'm going to warp a little bit further here, as we tend to do. 40, 30, 20, 10 seconds. 3, 2, 1, mark. Okay. Actually, this nuclear engine should be combined together here, and the rest of this is fine. Okay. So we're about to burn out our boosters. There they go. And off we go with our nuclear tanks. Well, singular, I guess, because it's all in one line here. Note how I had this turned so that they're all symmetrical now. That was very deliberate. Okay, so this is going to be a reasonably long burn. Nuclear engines are very efficient, but they don't have very high thrust. So we will physics warp this burn. We've got about 400 meters per second to go here. And we're going to be right around there, eventually. 300 meters per second to go. 250. And yeah, we're slightly off of the prograde target here because of our imbalanced thrust to weight, right? This section here had a very high thrust to weight ratio. This section has a low thrust to weight ratio. This is to be expected. Okay. 20 seconds to go. And let's come out of physics warp. We've got about 5 seconds left in this burn. 3, 2, 1, 0-ish. 0-ish. Okay. That's about as close as we're going to get. Is that close enough? No, it's not, actually. This is an impact trajectory. Yeah, we need to flip around to retrograde. Okay, that's going to be exciting. But we need to correct this. We don't want to impact the moon. We just want to steal some gravity from it. So we're going to flip around to retrograde here and pull this back to about... there. That'll do. Except we're not... oh, we are actually escaping. No, that's another moon encounter. Hang on a moment. Hang on a moment. So we're going to have to go to the periapsis here, which we'll go ahead and warp to here for the time being. And we're going to have to do a slight burn at the moon periapsis to push our apoapsis out. That was not nailed. by any stretch of the imagination. It's very sad, but it'll be fine. We have plenty of delta V in this thing. I'm not concerned. Okay, so here we are entering the sphere of influence of the moon. Cool. And we're going to want to flip around to prograde, and at this periapsis here, do a small prograde burn. Very, very small. It's not going to require much. Okay, so we're flipping to prograde here. Let's go ahead and physics warp. If I had executed this burn correctly, we wouldn't have required either of these corrective burns, but here we are. This is why we build in extra delta V. Actually, a prograde burn isn't doing it. Hang on. What type of burn do we want? Like a radio? Yeah. A radial burn. That'll do the trick. Okay, so we'll align for that. 13 seconds of burn here, 33.7 meters per second. Gross. But this is what happens when you mess it up. That's fine. So we'll align for that. And we will commence this burn in 20 seconds. 2, 1, 0. Excellent. And off we go. So it is about time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and next episode, we're going to fly over and land on Duna. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including Casserole, ALS Gamer, Ken2In, James, Shadowwolf, Mlohan80, Kentogan, Spartan News, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Unisol, Kadra, Rogue Corvid, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.